I stood frozen in the hospital hallway, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The ICU doors were right there in front of me, but I couldn't bring myself to walk through them. My chest still ached from the tests they'd run earlier that morning. The doctor said it was stress-related. Nothing serious. But my heart felt like it was breaking for an entirely different reason. A nurse in blue scrubs walked past me, and that's when I heard my son's voice drift clearly through the half-open door. It was clear, cold, and unmistakable. "My father is dead to me," Ethan said, his tone flat and emotionless. "There's no need to inform him if anything happens to me. Don't call him again." My heart stopped. Every muscle in my body froze. I must have misheard. That couldn't be my son talking. Not my Ethan. Not the boy I'd raised, loved, and sacrificed everything for. I pushed the door open slowly, my hand trembling against the cold metal. Ethan stood beside my former hospital bed with his wife Mallory right next to him. Her arms were crossed tightly, and that smirk, that cruel, satisfied smirk, was plastered across her face like she'd won some kind of prize. "Ethan?" My voice came out broken, barely above a whisper. He turned slowly, his face completely blank. No warmth, no recognition, nothing at all. "Dad, you shouldn't be here," he said flatly, like I was a stranger bothering him. "What do you mean? I'm your father. I just—" "Security," Mallory interrupted sharply, her finger already pressing the call button mounted on the wall. "We have someone here who's refusing to leave." I stared at my son, desperately waiting for him to stop this madness. He didn't. He just looked away, avoiding my eyes completely. 2 security guards appeared within seconds. "Sir, you need to leave immediately." I backed away slowly, my chest tightening painfully. As they escorted me down the long hallway and out of the building, I heard Mallory's laugh, soft, quiet, but unmistakably triumphant. That sound would haunt me for months. How did we get here? I asked myself that same question every single night for weeks afterward, lying awake in my empty apartment, staring blankly at the ceiling. 8 years ago, my beautiful wife died. Cancer took her in 6 brutal months. I was completely lost, shattered, unable to function properly. Ethan was only 24 years old then, fresh out of college, just starting to build his life. So I did what any loving father would do without hesitation. I gave him everything I had. The house we'd lived in for 30 years, I signed it over to him. The family hardware business my grandfather had built from nothing in 1952, I made Ethan a partial owner, giving him a future, security, and pride. The money I'd saved over decades of hard work, I handed it over to help him and Mallory start their married life together properly. I only wanted to help my son succeed. I loved him more than anything in this world. He was all I had left after my wife died. But things started changing the moment Mallory entered our lives permanently. At first, she seemed polite enough, smiling sweetly at family dinners and holiday gatherings. Then, gradually, the smiles disappeared completely. She'd roll her eyes whenever I spoke. She'd whisper to Ethan during conversations, pulling his attention away from me constantly. Slowly but surely, I felt myself being pushed completely out of their lives. Then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, an official envelope arrived from my bank. I opened it at my kitchen table, completely confused by what I was seeing. There were withdrawals I'd never made, transfers I'd never authorized, money moving in ways I didn't understand. I called the bank immediately, my hands shaking as I dialed. "Mr. Sullivan, those transactions were all properly approved by your son, Ethan Sullivan. You gave him power of attorney last year, so everything is completely legitimate." "I did what?" My voice came out strangled. The woman on the phone repeated herself patiently. My hands went completely numb. I'd never, ever given anyone power of attorney. Not to Ethan. Not to anyone. I tore through my filing cabinet for hours that evening, searching desperately for answers. Papers scattered everywhere across my floor. Finally, buried deep in a manila folder, I found it. A thick stack of documents I'd signed several months earlier. Ethan had brought them to me after my minor chest scare last spring. "Just routine stuff, Dad," he'd said casually, placing the papers in front of me with a pen. "Insurance forms and medical authorizations. Nothing important. Just sign where the tabs are." I'd trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I? He was my son. But buried carefully in the middle of those innocent-looking medical forms was a power of attorney document. And right beneath that was another form, A complete business transfer agreement for Sullivan and Son Hardware. My grandfather's hardware store, the business I'd spent 40 years building and protecting, was now entirely Ethan's property. I had absolutely zero ownership, zero control, zero rights whatsoever. I called my longtime lawyer, Mr. Brennan, immediately, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "Frank, I'll be completely honest with you," he said carefully after reviewing scanned copies of the documents I'd emailed him. "Technically speaking, this is perfectly legal. You signed these documents willingly. Your signature is valid. But morally, Frank, this is shady as absolute hell. Can I fight this in court?" He paused for a long, uncomfortable moment. "You could certainly try, but it'll cost you tens of thousands in legal fees, and frankly, there's no guarantee you'd win. You signed these documents voluntarily, even if you didn't understand what they actually were." I hung up the phone slowly, staring at those papers spread across my table. My own son had deceived me, or someone had carefully convinced him to do it. That someone was definitely Mallory. I started digging through old emails, text messages, anything I could possibly find that might explain this betrayal. Hours later, deep in Ethan's email account that I still had access to from years ago, I found it. A draft email Mallory had written to a friend, but apparently never sent. It was easier than I thought. "Frank trusts Ethan completely. Slip the papers in, done." Mallory was the puppet master behind everything. Every single piece of evidence pointed directly back to her calculated manipulation. I spent days going through old text messages and emails, piecing together the timeline of her systematic destruction of my relationship with Ethan. I found messages where she carefully convinced him I was overbearing and controlling. She told him repeatedly that I saw him as a complete failure, that I was trying to run his entire life. None of it was remotely true. I'd never said or thought any of those horrible things. I loved my son deeply and unconditionally. I only wanted him to succeed and be happy. But Mallory had twisted every conversation, every gesture, every act of love into something dark and sinister. She isolated Ethan from me slowly, word by poisonous word, month by month, until he couldn't see the truth anymore. I found bank receipts showing that she'd been systematically moving money out of the business account into her personal savings account. Expensive designer purses, luxury trips to the Caribbean, expensive jewelry from high-end stores, all bought with money from the store. My grandfather had built with his own two hands 70 years ago. Then I found the letter that changed everything. It was handwritten on expensive stationery, never mailed, tucked carelessly in an old planner she'd left at my house months before. Mallory's distinctive, flowery handwriting filled the page. Cutting Frank out of everything was easier than I ever imagined. He's so desperately pathetic, so eager to be the good dad, that he'll literally sign anything Ethan puts in front of him without reading it. Ethan does whatever I tell him to do now. This is almost too easy. Like taking candy from a baby. I sat there at my kitchen table, reading those cruel words over and over and over. My chest hurt terribly. Not from my heart condition this time, from pure devastating betrayal. My son was gone. He wasn't the boy I'd raised with love and care anymore. He was completely Mallory's puppet now, dancing on her strings. I tried one final time to reach my son. I had to try, despite everything. He was still my boy underneath it all. I called Ethan and asked him to meet me for coffee. We sat in a small cafe downtown, awkward, heavy silence hanging between us like a thick wall. I started as gently as I possibly could. "Ethan, I know things have been extremely tense between us lately, but you're my son. You're all I have left in this world. Can we just talk honestly? Really, truly talk to each other?" He sighed heavily, looking annoyed and impatient. "Dad, why do you always do this dramatic stuff?" "Do what?" "Act like you're the victim in everything. You gave us the house, the business, everything. Now you suddenly feel entitled to it all again? That's not fair to us." Those were Mallory's exact words. I could literally hear her voice speaking through him. "I gave it all to you, because I love you, Ethan, not to buy your loyalty or hold it over your head later." Well, maybe you should have thought about the consequences before making everything so complicated and dramatic. I felt tears building behind my eyes. Complicated? Ethan? I'm your father. I gave you everything because you're my son. And I'm an adult now, Dad. An adult with my own family. Mallory and I don't need you constantly hovering over us anymore, questioning everything we do." He stood up abruptly, grabbing his jacket from the chair. I reached desperately for his arm. "Ethan, please. Just listen for 1 minute. You're not invited to Thanksgiving this year, Dad. Mallory thinks it's better for everyone if we have some space, some serious distance. From you." He walked out of the cafe without looking back once. I sat there completely frozen, staring blankly at my untouched coffee growing cold on the table. My son had just erased me completely from his life, like I'd never existed at all. 2 weeks later, I visited Mr. Brennan's office again. I desperately needed to check on my will and make sure everything was still properly in order. "Frank, I have something important to tell you," he said carefully, his expression grave. "Your will was changed approximately 6 months ago. Did you know about this?" "What? I never changed anything." "Ethan and Mallory came into this office together. They claimed you were experiencing significant cognitive decline and needed immediate help managing your legal affairs properly. You signed a completely new will that day." My blood ran ice cold. "I never signed any new will, Mr. Brennan. I swear to you." Mr. Brennan pulled out a thick folder from his filing cabinet. "You did sign it, Frank. I have your signature right here. But something felt very wrong to me that day, so I kept the original will safe. I photocopied absolutely everything before filing the new version." "What does the new will say?" "Everything. Your entire estate goes directly to Ethan and Mallory. Nothing to charities, nothing to your grandchildren's education funds, just them, complete control." I felt physically sick. "And my original will?" "The original splits everything equally. Substantial education funds for your grandchildren, donations to charities you care about, and a fair portion to Ethan." "Can we reverse this legally?" "We absolutely can. I have solid proof you weren't experiencing any cognitive decline whatsoever. Your medical records from that period show you were completely clear-headed and competent. But Frank, this means war. Ethan will fight this hard." I nodded slowly, feeling something hardening inside my chest. "Then let him fight. I'm not rolling over and dying anymore." Mr. Brennan smiled faintly. "Good. It's about damn time, Frank." I left his office feeling different, stronger, like I'd found my backbone again after years of being bent. Instead of fighting immediately in court, I did something completely unexpected. Something they'd never see coming in a million years. I disappeared entirely from their world. I got a job at a large, competing hardware chain across town, far from Ethan's store. I used my middle name, Frank Callahan, on all the paperwork so absolutely no one would connect me to the Sullivan family name. I rented a tiny, modest apartment above a laundromat and kept my head down, staying invisible. I wasn't hiding from them. I was strategically rebuilding myself from nothing. The work was physically hard. I stocked heavy shelves, helped customers find obscure items, swept floors and cleaned bathrooms, but it felt genuinely good. Honest work. Real work. No one lied to me here. No one manipulated me. One busy Saturday afternoon, I saw a shockingly familiar face in the power tools aisle. Marla, my former store manager from Sullivan and Son. Her eyes went completely wide with surprise. "Frank? Frank Sullivan? Is that really you?" I smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. "Hey Marla, good to see you. What on earth are you doing working here? I thought you'd retired comfortably." "Long story. How's the old store doing these days?" Her face immediately darkened. "It's bad, Frank. Really, really bad. Mallory's systematically running it straight into the ground. She fired half the experienced staff for no good reason, cut critical supplier deals to save pennies, and treats customers like absolute garbage. People are genuinely furious." "And Ethan lets her do all this?" "Ethan barely shows up at the store anymore. She runs absolutely everything now. Total control." Marla leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "There's serious talk of a major scandal brewing. Something really big. I'll definitely keep you posted on developments." I nodded slowly. "Thanks, Marla. I appreciate that more than you know. Revenge wasn't my goal. But information was pure power." Marla called me exactly 1 week later, her voice urgent and low, almost whispering. "Frank, you absolutely need to hear this. Mallory's been systematically underpaying suppliers for months and pocketing the substantial difference. She's also skimming tiny amounts off employee paychecks. Just a little bit each time so nobody notices immediately." That's completely illegal, Marla. I know, and people are finally starting to catch on now. The old supplier, Mr. Grayson, is absolutely furious about it. He's threatening to file a major lawsuit. How's Ethan handling all this? Marla laughed bitterly. He has absolutely no idea what's happening. Mallory keeps all the financial books locked up tight in her office. He just blindly signs whatever papers she puts in front of him. My son was being used as a puppet. Part of me felt genuine pity for him. The other part, pure anger at his willful blindness. Marla, do me a favor. Tell Mr. Grayson I'd really like to talk with him soon. She paused thoughtfully. You thinking of opening your own store again? Maybe, maybe not yet. But I definitely want options available. 2 days later, I met Mr. Grayson at a quiet diner outside town. He shook my hand warmly, genuinely happy to see me after all this time. Frank, I always deeply respected you and your grandfather. What Mallory's doing to that business is absolutely disgusting. If I ever opened a new store, would you supply me? He grinned widely. In a heartbeat, Frank. I'd drop Ethan's store today if you asked me to. I smiled back. Let me think carefully about it. But I was already thinking, already planning, already rebuilding my future from scratch. A week later, my old friend and occasional business rival, Victor Hale, called me completely out of the blue. Frank Sullivan, I heard through the grapevine you're working retail again. That actually true? It is. I've got a serious proposition for you. I own a failing hardware shop on Maple Street downtown. I'll completely fund the renovation and restocking if you'll run it properly. Profit share, 50-50 split. I was completely silent, processing this unexpected opportunity carefully. Frank, you're an absolute legend in this community. People genuinely love and trust you. Let's show this entire town what real, honest customer service looks like again. I thought about Ethan, about Mallory, about everything they'd stolen from me without any remorse. I'll do it, I said firmly, but quietly, no big announcements or grand openings. Victor laughed heartily. Quietly? Frank, you're about to make serious noise whether you want to or not. People will notice quality. We shook hands firmly on the deal. Within 2 weeks, I had the keys to the shop. I spent long days painting walls, restocking shelves, and rebuilding the entire space from scratch with my own 2 hands. I didn't tell anyone my real last name yet. The simple sign outside just read Callahan Hardware in plain letters. Word would spread soon enough through the community. But for now, I worked steadily in peaceful silence, building something solid that couldn't be stolen or manipulated away from me ever again. This was mine. Truly, completely mine. I personally reached out to every single employee Mallory had fired or mistreated over the past 2 years. Most of them jumped eagerly at the chance to work with me again. Marla became my store manager immediately. Others returned quickly. Good, loyal, hard-working people who remembered exactly what respect and dignity felt like in a workplace. Within just 1 month, Callahan Hardware was genuinely buzzing with activity. We treated every customer right. We didn't overcharge for simple items. We smiled genuinely. We actually cared about helping people solve their problems. People definitely noticed the difference. One regular Saturday customer said warmly, "You know, you really remind me of the old Sullivan shop, before it went completely to hell." I just smiled modestly. We aim to please everyone who walks through that door. Slowly but steadily, customers started switching their loyalty. They didn't know I was actually Frank Sullivan yet, but they absolutely knew quality and honesty when they experienced it firsthand. Meanwhile, Marla kept careful tabs on Ethan's struggling store for me. Profits dropped 30% this month alone, she told me quietly one evening. Mallory's desperately blaming online shopping and the bad economy. Ethan's completely panicking. I didn't celebrate their failures. I just kept working hard every single day. Revenge wasn't really the goal here. Excellence was. But revenge was definitely a satisfying side effect I couldn't ignore completely. 3 months in, a local newspaper ran a prominent feature story about my shop. The return of a local legend, how one man rebuilt a hardware empire from nothing. They didn't use my real name initially in the article, but someone inevitably leaked it to reporters. By the next morning, absolutely everyone knew the truth. Frank Sullivan was back in business. The community response was completely overwhelming. Old customers flooded in constantly. They hugged me tightly, told me how much they genuinely missed the old store's atmosphere and service. Mallory saw the article. Marla told me she literally threw it violently across the office in rage. "She's absolutely furious," Marla said. "She's screaming at Ethan constantly, demanding to know why he didn't tell her you were back in town." "What did Ethan say?" "He didn't know either. He looked absolutely terrified of her." That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" Mallory's voice was sharp, dripping with pure venom. "Hello, Mallory." "Stay away from our business, Frank. You signed it over legally. It's ours now. You have no right." "I'm not touching your business, Mallory. I'm running my own." "You're deliberately stealing our customers." "No, Mallory. You drove them away with your terrible attitude and dishonesty. I'm just giving them a better option." She hung up abruptly. I smiled for the first time in months. Mallory went into complete overdrive after that conversation. She started micromanaging absolutely everything. Employees, inventory, suppliers, every tiny detail imaginable. Ethan called me late one night, his voice strained and exhausted. "Dad, can we please talk?" "I'm listening." "Why are you doing this? You're deliberately hurting us." "I'm running a business, Ethan, just like you are." "Mallory says you're trying to destroy us completely." "Mallory's wrong. I'm just trying to survive, something you made very hard when you stole my business from me." Silence. "I didn't steal. You did, Ethan. You tricked me into signing papers. You cut me out completely. And now you're upset that I didn't just disappear quietly?" "Dad, I have to go. Good luck with your store." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt strong inside. A week later, Mr. Grayson, the supplier, called Ethan and officially ended their partnership. He switched to supplying me exclusively. Mallory lost a major supplier. Her desperation grew rapidly. She started cutting more corners, angering more people in the community. It was only a matter of time before everything collapsed around them. I bought the vacant property directly next to Ethan's store. I had no immediate plans to expand yet, but I wanted them to think I did. The for sale sign came down quickly. Mallory saw it immediately from her office window. She launched an aggressive smear campaign against me. Flyers appeared around town. Callahan Hardware, built on lies and deception. Anonymous online reviews viciously trashed my store. Fake emails claimed I mistreated employees and cheated customers regularly, but it backfired spectacularly on her. Customers recognized Mallory's tactics immediately. They'd seen her do it before to others. Online forums lit up defending me passionately. "Frank Sullivan is a genuinely good man. Mallory's the real liar here." I worked for Frank for 10 years, best boss I ever had in my life. "Mallory treats people like dirt. This is pure desperation." Someone traced the fake reviews back to Mallory's IP address. A local blogger exposed it publicly. The backlash was brutal and swift. People started boycotting Ethan's store entirely. Mallory had destroyed her own reputation, trying to destroy mine. The community rallied strongly around me. Local businesses offered partnerships and collaborations. Customers brought friends and family members to shop. Meanwhile, Ethan's store was hemorrhaging money rapidly. Suppliers dropped them. Employees quit in frustration daily. Mallory tried desperately to fight back, but every single move she made backfired worse. One evening, I was locking up when a local reporter approached me on the sidewalk. "Mr. Sullivan, how does it feel to be back in business?" I smiled. "It feels like home." "Your son's store is struggling badly. Do you feel responsible for that?" "No, I feel sad. I genuinely wish things were different, but I didn't create this situation. I'm just surviving it." The interview aired that night. The reporter painted me as a humble, wronged father. Mallory as a villain. Public opinion was crystal clear. Team Frank. 3 months later, I collapsed suddenly at work. Exhaustion, stress, severe dehydration. I woke up in the hospital. The nurse asked if I had emergency contacts. "My son, Ethan Sullivan," she called him. I heard her side of the conversation clearly. "Mr. Sullivan, your father is in the hospital." Pause. "I see. No, I understand completely. I'll note that in his file." She hung up, looking uncomfortable and sad. "What did he say?" I asked weakly. She hesitated. "He said you're dead to him. He doesn't want to be contacted about you anymore." I smiled faintly. "Good." She looked confused. "Good? It's exactly what I needed him to say on record." She didn't understand. But I did completely. Ethan had just proved on official record that he'd abandoned me completely. That would matter very soon. I recovered quickly. But the hospital stay gave me absolute clarity about what needed to happen next. I updated my will with Mr. Brennan immediately. Everything goes to my grandkids' education fund and charity. Ethan gets nothing. Mallory gets nothing. Frank, are you absolutely sure about this? Completely. I also recorded a detailed video message for my grandchildren, explaining everything honestly. The betrayal, the manipulation, why I made this difficult choice. I love you both, I said into the camera, but I can't reward the people who taught you that family doesn't matter. I hope you understand someday. I sealed the video with Mr. Brennan. Only release this if I die or if Ethan contests the will. Understood. I left feeling lighter. I'd taken back control of my own life. Ethan and Mallory thought they'd won completely. But the game was far from over. Ethan's store faced a financial audit. Someone, maybe a former employee, reported suspicious activity to authorities. The findings were damning. Mallory had embezzled thousands. She'd manipulated books, skimmed paychecks, and defrauded suppliers systematically. A former employee filed a lawsuit. It made local headlines. Sullivan & Son Hardware faces embezzlement scandal. I read the article at breakfast. I felt no joy, just deep sadness. Marla called. Frank, did you see the news? I did. Mallory's in deep trouble. Ethan's panicking. He's trying to distance himself, but he signed off on everything she did. He's complicit then. Exactly. That evening, Marla told me something worse. Frank, they borrowed from the kids' college fund. $20,000 to cover business debts. My stomach turned. Those were my grandchildren, innocent kids. Ethan had stolen from his own children. I hosted a memorial for my late wife. It would have been our 40th anniversary. I invited the entire community. Ethan and Mallory showed up uninvited. People stared uncomfortably. I let them stay. I wasn't causing a scene at my wife's memorial. During my speech, I raised a glass high. To my wife who taught me that family isn't just blood. It's love, respect, and loyalty. To the people who showed me that when the ones you trust fail you, others will rise to support you. I looked directly at Ethan. To the family I've found in this community. Thank you all. People clapped. Ethan looked down. Mallory's jaw was tight with anger. They left quickly afterward. 2 days later, Ethan's business declared bankruptcy. Mallory was officially under investigation for embezzlement. She faced serious criminal charges. Ethan lost the house, the cars, everything they owned. Mallory left him, just packed her bags and disappeared completely, leaving Ethan with the massive debt and public scandal. My phone rang late one night. Ethan's name appeared. I stared at the screen. I didn't answer. He called again and again, 7 times. Finally, he left a voicemail. Dad, please, I lost everything. Mallory's gone. I don't know what to do. Please call me back, please. I deleted it immediately. A week later, Ethan showed up at my apartment door. He looked broken, unshaven, hollow-eyed, defeated. Dad, please, I have nowhere to go. I stood in the doorway firmly. I didn't invite him in. What do you want, Ethan? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Mallory, she manipulated me. I see that now. You think an apology fixes this? No, but you told a nurse I was dead to you. Twice. On record. He flinched visibly. You stole my business. You stole from your own kids. You let that woman destroy everything our family built. I know. Please, Dad, I'll do anything. Anything at all. I looked at him, really looked at him. He was broken. But was he sorry, or just desperate? Now you understand, I said quietly, what it feels like to be treated like you don't exist. I closed the door firmly. I didn't sleep that night. Ethan's broken face haunted me until morning. By sunrise, I made a decision. I called him. There's a room above my shop. You can stay there, but you work for it. Minimum wage, no special treatment, no family favors whatsoever. Silence on the line. Okay, he whispered. Thank you, Dad. Don't thank me. This isn't kindness. This is a lesson you need to learn. He moved in that week. I gave him the smallest, dirtiest tasks, cleaning, stocking, taking out trash. He didn't complain once. I watched carefully. Was this real change or another act? Only time would tell the truth. Ethan worked hard every single day. He cleaned bathrooms, organized shelves, helped customers patiently. People recognized him. Some weren't kind at all. Aren't you the guy who ran Sullivan's into the ground? He'd nod. Yes, I made terrible mistakes. I'm trying to do better now. I never defended him. He had to earn respect himself. One day, I overheard him apologizing to a customer he'd been rude to years ago. "I'm sorry for how I treated you back then. I was completely wrong." The customer was stunned. "Thank you. I appreciate that, honestly." I felt something shift inside me. Maybe he was genuinely learning. Months passed. Ethan changed. Not overnight, but slowly, genuinely. He worked without complaint. He listened. He helped everyone. One evening, I left him alone at the register for the first time ever. I watched from the office camera nervously. He handled transactions smoothly, smiled at customers, stayed professional throughout. The store didn't burn down. When I came back, he looked nervous. "How'd I do?" "Fine," I said simply. He smiled, relieved. That night, I realized something important. I didn't forgive him yet, but I saw a glimpse of the son I used to know. A letter came. The return address was from a homeless shelter downtown. Mallory. I opened it. The handwriting was messy, desperate, pathetic. "Frank, I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm struggling badly. I made mistakes. Please, I need money. Just enough to get back on my feet." I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully. I walked to the trash and dropped it in without hesitation. Ethan saw me. "What was that?" "A letter from Mallory." "What'd she say?" "Doesn't matter. Some doors stay permanently closed." He nodded slowly. "You're absolutely right." He didn't ask to read it. He didn't defend her. "That life's gone forever," he said quietly. I looked at him, genuinely surprised. Maybe he really had changed. 6 months later, Ethan and I shared dinner at my apartment. Nothing fancy, just pasta and bread. We didn't talk much, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful, comfortable. Finally, I spoke. "You know, I never died, Ethan. I was right here, waiting for you to remember I mattered." He looked down, his eyes wet with tears. "I see you now, Dad." I nodded. "Good." We finished eating in silence. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. I'd lost my business, my savings, and years of my life to betrayal, but I'd gained something too. Self-respect, strength, and maybe, just maybe, my son back. Not the son Mallory created, the real one. The one I'd been waiting for all along.